how did you manage to build your own Signalbase engines?
We have to gauge the situation that a buyer is in. And the buyer journey ranges from absolutely product or let's say problem unaware to problem aware and then solution aware. We do something that we internally call meta signals. So, for example, if there's someone who would benefit from a certain signal, that's the signal we try to target on behalf of them.
In order to go there, you probably burn yourself quite a lot. So what are some of the mistakes?
There's a volume of accounts, let's say quality accounts on LinkedIn of my BDRs or like lower down the hierarchy kind of accounts. And then, of course, there are founder profiles and people in the middle. What if I have a waterfall approach to it?
Nobody have brought it up, and I do want to share it with the audience. So how do you do it with multi-threading for bigger deals then? Sayanta, welcome to the show, man. Thanks a lot for having the time today to share generally what does a fellow builder out there, to share what's working and what doesn't work. And hopefully we fry you quite nicely today on the hot chair. What is your biggest stake for the go-to-market community at the moment?
I don't know, it's probably a very common phenomena, but I honestly feel that GTM infrastructure is way too complicated. I think it can be made very simple. We're just still hanging on to 20 odd tools that's there in the market for every single small motion that we want to do, whether it's like, let's say, social listening or signals, as you, Georgie, know. These are not as complicated as it's painted in let's say, LinkedIn, etc. Right? Once it's in place, it's more of a framework or an automation channel that gets things going.
A simple evergreen play can get the job done as long as you drive relevancy. I think just for you to think in compounding systems rather than, oh, this hyper personalized message and things like this. I'm not sure if you know Ilya from Hey Rich, but in episode number 3, he mentioned exactly that. He burned a very good lead with a hyper personalization around her dead cat or something like this, which was a completely ridiculous story. So never do that amount of personalization. But yeah, no, I genuinely agree. And it feels like the hype is something that is quite active still on the market. Correct me if I'm wrong. You either have the new people that enter GTM engineering or GTM as a whole and they jump on every tool. And then you have the seasoned people who really think in systems. So yeah, when building NREV, what did you guys notice over this time frame?
So yeah, honestly, when we were building NREV, we used to work with after building the product, we used to work as a services arm to a lot of players. And tooling itself is very complex when you try to look at what people have brought in their past terms. People who have left the organization also leaves behind a lot of tribal knowledge as well as a lot of legacy tooling that's there in place. So honestly, for slightly scaled up organization, it becomes a little difficult to migrate to smoother, simpler stacks or simpler infrastructure. But to be honest, there, I think once you start using or leveraging the power of, let's say, automations or AI and building out some of these like regularly running workflows, things become a lot simpler. Right. Also, Georgie, to the point that you mentioned about over hyper personalization, I remember this also happening to a couple of our customers. AI does actually a pretty, what did I say, like a pretty pathetic job in terms of personalization, especially when you see it over a larger set of data points. We always prefer with going with data and things that would add value to the person we are reaching out to instead of going for like random personalization, which kind of brings about a personalized note. I think it might be different in different industries. If you're like looking to do a very consultative or a relationship based sales approach, I think that can still be of value. But unfortunately, I feel today the world has become a lot more logical. They like getting value right up front in the first go itself. So those nuances, I'm sure we'll talk about. When you talk about legacy or foundational thought process that's still there in a lot of companies, I feel like it's going to start happening that people are going to migrate to more automations, to more consolidated stacks rather than having siloed
Yeah.
systems working separately.
I feel like the topic of automation generally is so broad, right? You can do so much. Though I think also
Yeah.
we're in a little bit of a bubble because the majority of the people probably that we
Hmm.
talk to keep on iterating. But if you take a step back, that for the average marketing person, and I'm saying this because I used to work in marketing teams, right? Like my background is in marketing. So for the
Yeah.
average marketing person, they're kind of okay with not trying new stuff. So the whole effort is not to adopt the tool, but to make them to even give it a try. And that's the step further. And you'll be surprised even the amount of time where I still come across people that don't leverage Claude, for instance. You mentioned quite a few pieces in there, which is what from your own clients and things like that. Part of the show is to always ask, how did you manage to build your own Signal-based engine? So do you mind sharing a little bit more about that? Does it go on levels? How does it go?
Oh, absolutely. For us, there's actually, so we sell signals as well, just like you, Georgie. So when we're trying to sell a signal-based motion, we have to get to one level above. So for example, there's a brilliant signal out there in the market, which helps you start tapping some of your competitors' active deals by looking at their sales reps engagement. But we have to actually do it one level up because we have to prove to them that their signals or their activities can show them data that they were not aware of. Right. So basically, we do something that we internally call meta signals. So, for example, if there's someone who would benefit from a certain signal, that's the signal we try to target on behalf of them. It's a little bit more complicated than typical signal based play, but we do try to capture everyone's own social activities and not just saying things like, I like your post
Mm-hmm.
about this topic that you mentioned, but it's more about this is what I can gather from your overall social presence, right? For example, there was this particular email that we sent out which said that I know that you're targeting these and these opportunities. And how about if I could flip that to your competitors and you could start seeing which opportunities you could probably get firsthand in who are already in the evaluation cycle for a tool like yours or an offering like yours. Right? It gets a little more complicated for us, but the way we went about thinking about signals is that we have to gauge the situation that a buyer is in. And the buyer journey ranges from absolutely or let's say problem unaware to problem aware and then solution aware. Right. When we think about that as a buyer journey, I think when we are looking at problem unaware people, that those are very high level signals where we're looking at hiring, we're looking at funding, we're looking at, let's say, different kinds of movement in the team, etc. But then we actually go across to when they're looking at solution aware kind of people. Those are the kind of those signals become a little more tricky. You want to be very specific about the problems that you're addressing for them, because at that point, they already know about the solutions that are there in the market, right? It's a high intent, but also a high, how should I say, like highly aware kind of a persona. So you want to be very specific about how your tool kind or offering fits into the exact problem, the situation of that person, and be
Yeah.
that personalized to that person. So yeah, I think that spectrum is important to recognize and go about it. So we have done it by mapping different kind of signals across that spectrum for ourselves. Like I mentioned, the competitor signal is something that comes way later in the
Mhm.
journey. So we have to be very careful about that. But of course, like any kind of new funding, any kind of new person being hired, going into the details of what the responsibilities are of that person to further understand how we place them becomes very important. So yeah, I think we have signals, I think at least like 25
Yeah.
to 30 odd different types of signals that work together, and like different types of campaigns that are targeted towards combinations of those signals. And then, so for example, we wouldn't just go a person who's just hiring a GTM engineer. We would definitely want to look at how the marketing person is placed. What were the responsibilities of the marketing person? How is that marketing department evolving? How is the sales? We also touch upon how the sales department evolving.
Yeah.
Any thoughts in general on social about them and of
Indeed, a
people?
secret sauce towards understanding the whole landscape, right? And that particular account, because if you get just a shallow data point, and this is something that I've been repeating quite a lot, like when you get an evergreen signal, do try to take a step back and analyze absolutely everything, because only then you can realize what is going on and why. Even if you already put your foot on the door, but at some point they become stale in a sense of there is no engagement on whatsoever. If you know what is going on at larger company scale, and this happened to me, by the way, this week 2 times already on a pure vendor level side, there were teams that fundamentally needed to change their product. So of course I'm not top of mind anymore because of the fact that the whole situation changed. So I would need to approach it with this in mind. And of course, like the whole buying motion is going to be a little bit more delayed, right? So it's so much more than just blasting emails, which I feel like we as signal educators, quote unquote, need to keep repeating, because if not, people just keep on buying data from traditional data sets and then blast it fully. So yeah, that sounds awesome. But in order to go there, you probably burn yourself quite a lot, right? So what are some of the mistakes that you did when trying to build that signal-based engine?
Look, honestly, like as a marketer, I feel the only thing that you're looking to get is attention, right? And in that, you have to be iterative in your approach. I don't think anyone in the world will nail it the first time they're trying to get a motion working. Our motion is heavily LinkedIn based, and I have probably faltered so many times in different types of mistakes that I have made. For example, connection notes being salesy just becomes the biggest blocker, for example. Right. Although there's a personalization scope there, I have seen connection notes drop from, or like connection request rates drop from 40% to once your connection node becomes salesy. And I'm talking about small things, but no matter how much information you have about that person, it's important to also pay some respect to being in like engaging with that person's account, making, especially if they're an important person in a company, being able to grab their attention on their feed, being able to warm them up and then reach out. And I honestly also feel that there's just too many cliched statements
Yeah.
all around the place, which kind of does not get attention. Read your last post,
Yeah.
love the angle that you had around it. I kind of saw that you're hiring for this particular persona. Is this a problem? These are things that will not get you attention no matter what, right? And we've of course learned that the hard way. But then being more data pointed in terms of the situation, again, like iterating on what I mentioned, but understanding the situation they're in, what would really help them, giving some value upfront to see what is possible on an offering like yours. Those kind of things I feel are things that I've learned over time after messing up at least
Yeah.
like 50 or different campaigns. But yeah, I think it's a part of quickly failing and then realizing what's wrong in those and then gathering enough data points. I feel that the biggest mistake that we do is not gathering enough data points. But now with
Yeah.
automations in place, those data points are clearly there, right? So if I have a LinkedIn campaign, I know that, okay, these were the number of people I have reached out to. These were the different brackets of persona they're in. Here's where my connection requests fail. Here's the note that kind of fails, or here's the approach to the note that fails at this level of persona. But if I go down, I feel that this level of
Yeah.
connection request still gets accepted, right?
If you want to do growth and as a whole, like if you want to move the company further, you need to be able to test hypotheses fast. And this kind of resonates because over the past two
Exactly.
weeks, I tested like 5 hypotheses just by doing manual outreach, because I didn't want to
Hmm.
put that much time into bulk validation, let's call it like this. I just wanted to get some snapshots in there, and either by talking to people and then using the transcript from granola into cloud code and then implementing my mental models to test that. Definitely resonating with that one. I'm not sure how many people actually do continue testing hypotheses later down the line, because they just got used to it, right? To hammer on what it works, but it only works until it doesn't, in that sense. So it's super cool that you mentioned
Yeah.
it. All right. In that sense, I do want to move a tiny bit the topic, and this is because of the fact that you guys have a unique view on the market, right? With Agent OS, which is your proposition, and there are so many uncertainties on the market right now. So I'm just wondering, like, how do you see it? Do you feel like in the end there is going to be a monopoly? Let's say, I don't know, a Claude or OpenAI really managed to succeed further, and it's only them, and everyone just keeps on feeding them. So therefore, proprietary data will win down the line.
Yeah. So I don't think there's going to be a monopoly, but there's definitely going to be like a few operating systems on which people are going to work, right? So, for example, for myself, code is the operating system on which I work. But then, of course, like all my automations are connected to Cloud Code. So I build my automations through Cloud Code. The entirety of all my NREV workflows, what's happening there, monitoring, to tweaking them, customizing them for my needs and for these hypotheses itself. I feel I, honestly, I do them on Cloud Code, but I think a lot of people do it on Codex, or there would be some kind of a Grok intervention down the line as well. So the overall operating system, I think, is going to be like a few given players. But I think the data procurement, like for example, Georgie, for signals, right? If base is a place where it gives me ultimate flexibility to just operate on those different kinds of signals, of course, like I use Signalbase on top of NREV, and that gives me like the full liberty to set up signals in my way. In fact, one of the like I feel myself being lucky is because I see so many different motions happening across all our customers. One recent learning, for example, was, and I instantly like implemented it for my case, was since again, like we do a lot of LinkedIn outbound, the biggest barrier is like, again, connections being accepted, right? So there was this one customer who suddenly came up and said that I don't need to send connections from one account. What if I have like there's a volume of accounts which are, let's say, quality accounts on LinkedIn of my BDRs, of my, let's say, or like lower down the hierarchy kind of accounts. And then of course there are founder profiles and people in the middle. What if I have a waterfall approach to it? Like I first send out through the 5 accounts that I have for the BDRs. If in 2 days the connection requests are not accepted, then I send them through my head of sales, and then I send it through a founder. Right? The connection request rate actually shot up like from I think 25 to 30% in the beginning to something like
Whoa.
80% after that.
That's the last touch point, or how did you attribute it?
No, overall. So if we were to target 100 people, I'm using like a waterfall approach, like from, let's say, 5 different people. So at the end of the waterfall, my overall, amongst all those 100 people, at least one person has been able to connect with 80 of those people.
Gotcha.
1% of all those people that I'm targeting, this 100 people.
So it's not attributed to a particular person, but to the overall company success to connect with that person. Okay. Question here. Don't
That's
you
right.
think if the
Yeah,
founder
exactly.
connects, it's a way different conversation and 10 times more likely to close than SDR?
That's correct. But you can't. So LinkedIn always has volume limits, right? So while you would want to run all your campaigns in the founder's profile, that's not possible, right? So because, like, for example, we have approximately about, I think, if I'm not wrong, somewhere around 6,000-ish connection requests sent out every month. I wish I could send all of them out through my profile, but that's not possible. So I can distribute them, but wherever it's falling through, I want to make sure that my initial research is not wasted about those people. So I make sure that it goes through a waterfall now, and that gives me a much, much higher rate of connection. So I typically never send a connection request out first through my profile.
Based on what I have seen, if you're on the same credibility level, of course, the connection rate is higher, right? But also on the other side, the reason why I'm bringing it up is because this tactic was applied to me from another, like from one vendor, doesn't matter which one it was. They tried to sell us some stuff. And then you see 3 people from the partnership level just connected, but they're solidified like SDRs pretty much. And each one of them send me the same stuff. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of, I don't know. Like, I don't need it, first of all. And then secondary, like, there are 3 more people that keeps on hammering me for the same message that I don't need. And I respond the same thing to each one of them. And it's kind of, okay, what the hell?
So that's the difference between using a very prescriptive SaaS solution versus using workflows. You have the flexibility to do whatever you want with workflows, right? So that as soon as, let's say, I've tried waterfall, and as soon as the next person gets connected, the person before that will never send you a message.
Makes sense.
So you will get a message always from one person. You'll never get bombarded from multiple people. Even if connection requests go out, you don't mind, right? Even if you have more people in your network, but as far as they're not messaging the same thing.
Sorry, this is just so interesting. Nobody have brought it up, and I do want to share it with the audience. So how do you do it with multi-threading for bigger deals then?
So what I typically do is basically, as you mentioned, so I always try to map the high level people with the high level people. So for example, we had this campaign going out to cybersecurity where I made sure that the founder level connects are done by only us founders. We are 3 co-founders. So that's being said through us. However, I also use the waterfall to juggle between the founders, just in case there's a better fit in one of the founders. So, for example, if you're reaching out to someone like a COO, it's possible that Rajat might connect better, or I don't want to give it to AI, but I want to make sure that their connection requests, if not being accepted, is sent out from the other founders as well. But for the rest of the people, like anyone in the VP level or even the director level or any other stakeholders in that buying committee, I would first try it from my other accounts, which are there in more volumes, right? Because I'm able to send out more connection requests from those higher volume accounts and then try it from us. So that is definitely a strategy that I now follow for these campaigns. But once connected, then I make sure that the highest level of connection is sending out the messages as far as those go. And then, yeah,
So you match it to who you want to target, right? Let's say you have 3 people that you want to reach out to. And then what you do is that you selectively
Yeah.
go, let's say CEO level, but you never do like
Yeah.
CEO to CEO, and then you also connect with the same CEO.
No, so what we do is basically see a cybersecurity
Okay, yeah.
company, not taking any
Yeah.
names, but there is a founder level, right? And we typically approach non-technical founders because ours is more GTM focused. So there might be 1 or 2 founders that we are targeting, and let's say there are 4 or 5 VP and director level people
Yeah.
that we are targeting across marketing, RevOps, and sales. Right now, what I would do is there would be primary targets and secondary targets. So basically, the founder level
Yeah.
folks in there, that 1 or 2 people will have primary, maybe Rajat, secondary,
Yeah.
maybe Nikhil, tertiary, me, trying to connect. If Rajat already connects with that
Yeah.
person, or automatically messages go out from there, from Rajat's profiles. But if it's Nikhil or me who connect, then it'll
Yeah.
go out with whomever is the best suited person. But in terms of the other people, like the VP and director level people, there are like these other benchmark profiles. We reach out from approximately 14 odd profiles from our organization itself. We've tiered those profiles, and I would probably send out from a second tier profile who are like
Yeah.
solutionizers, who are GTM engineers.
So no matter what happens, the CEO at the end is connected in that sense. Okay. Super good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But this is just one of the strategies, and there's so many that come out of our customers that it's really incredible. We get to learn from our customers so much. In fact, even the concept of Valley came out before Valley. That is one of our very early customers said that one of my real estates is a website, but my bigger real estate is actually LinkedIn. And I want to get first party data from LinkedIn more than I want to get from my website. Right. So anyone who is engaging with my content, anyone who is engaging with my profile, my company's profile, my overall leadership profile, it's very important for me to know. And even this was something that came out from one of our customers. So I think every quarter we typically internally have this meeting where we each of us come up with one of the learnings at least we have from our customers and try to within our strategies as well. So that's actually pretty cool for
For
us
sure.
seeing
You
people
guys need
automate
to
different
bake
kinds
it
of
in
things.
into a proper content series. What are some tactics that the users did? And it's
I
cool that we work together because then I can learn from you, right? So this is how the life goes, as we love to say. Because we're on the end, what is, and just to wrap it up, right? What is an underrated advice that you can give to the listeners?
I honestly feel like we have come to a time in AI where the possibilities are endless, right? And we have to learn from each other. So I love actually bringing people together in these. For example, we have these marketing lunches every month where people just come and discuss what they've instrumented over time or what is working for them, what is not working for them. I think that's my biggest area of learning, and people to people conversations, and even if it's not one on one, even one to many kind of conversations, but conversations are the things that we learn most from today. Honestly, the biggest problem of AI is being blindsided by some hype that's going on out there, but actual implementations and learnings from what people have done really make a lot of sense. And I think data has become more important than ever
For sure.
because there's a lot of fluff out there, but these data points actually give you a lot of confidence to try it for yourself. And ultimately, as a marketer, I think we need to just fail fast and understand what is working, right?
Thanks a lot, man, for coming. I think that was a super insightful conversation. And if you guys do want to learn more from this combination, do let us know in the comments and we can make it happen. And if not, I'll see you in the next episode. Cheers, folks.